based on contracts that we've already committed, the two people that we need most to bounce back next year are actually Nick Swisher and Jason Kipnis.
Well, absolutely. I mean, but then there's your problem is that was the same expectation for this season.
Yeah.
And that already, you know what I mean? Now you're getting into multiple years where you're going, man, we really need a bounce back. You have to need a bounce back from Swisher. I mean, you've got him. You own him. You know what I mean? He's your property, and nobody else is in line to take him off your hands anytime soon. So you can, but the Indians are not the type of team that can toss that to the side and just go, okay, well, we're just going to pay him not to play. They don't do that. So he has to bounce back. I mean, there's nobody that's going to take him off their hands in any way here with that much left on the contract. And you know what people forget is there's that extra year that may get added to it depending on how the number. I don't remember what the vesting is in that option. I can't remember what it is that triggers it, but he may trigger that last year in that thing and then add even more to it, you know. But this is all, this is all looking forward stuff. And you know what? I've got a lot of time. I think we've got all of November and December and January and February to talk about all of this stuff. Right now, as we set the stage, we've got games to play, and every single one of them means something. Again, I don't know if there's enough. They may need one more. They may get one more. I still think that if the Indians run this thing out, they're not going to get to the playoffs. They're going to get to a playoff to get to the playoffs. I think if the Indians win out 5, my gut tells me that they end up in one of those 2 or 3-way ties for that spot, and you're going to have the play-in game to get to the play-in game to get to the playoffs.
That's right. That certainly could happen. I know people are looking at magic numbers and tragic numbers and things like that. But what I've been looking at is just wins. And if we win them all, we're up to 87. And then I say, well, what do the other teams have to do to pass us? Of course, the Royals would have to win 2. Of course, they wouldn't be the 2 against us. They would have to win 2 against the White Sox. And they have 4 games at the White Sox to end the season. And unfortunately,
they just knocked off Detroit.
The White Sox.
Yeah, no, I was just saying they just knocked off Detroit. Play spoiler 2.
Yeah. And the thing is, fortunately, they're in. So we're talking about both wild card spots, not just one. Oakland does not have another one wrapped up. What they do is win one game in order to tie us. So they would have to go 1-5 down the stretch, and we would go 5-0 down the stretch to tie us, and then we have a play-in game there. And then you just have to hope that the Mariners don't go 5-1, because if they go 5-1 down the stretch, then they get that other spot. So basically, even though we're kind of behind, we've got teams that we're trying to chase. In a way, we kind of control our own destiny for the most part, where if we win them all, other teams would have to do a few gymnastics in order to catch us or to beat us. So in a strange way, we still have everything set up. But again, it's not easy to win 5 in a row, especially when the first 2 are against the Royals.
Yeah, I hear you. I disagree now. Losing that game to the Royals, you don't necessarily control your own destiny anymore. I do disagree a little bit with that, because as you said, you win 5, it gets you to 87. Bam. Okay, you're done and in the books. Seattle's 183, Kansas City's 185, Oakland's 186. I mean, seriously, that's Seattle. I could see Seattle's won 3 of their last 10. Seattle is slowly playing their way out. They've lost 3 in a row. Meanwhile, Oakland and Kansas City maybe seem to have stabilized things there. But, yeah, as you said, I mean, I brought it up at the beginning of the show. If you want to do all the math and stuff, it's easy. Indians win today and tomorrow. Kansas City loses on Thursday. We head into the weekend, 1 game back with 3 games to play, and then who knows how it's all going to play out. So, and that's leaving the wild card of Seattle. But now that's not destiny in your hand, because you don't have enough games that you can simply erase the deficit now. You're 3.5 back of Kansas City, so even if you win these next 2, you're going to go into the weekend a game and a half, or you're either 2 or 1, depending on what they do on Thursday. You'll either be 1 game behind or.
And that's strange how it just shows you in a 162-game season how important just 1 game can be. And I'm talking about that game last night, the difference between being 3.5 back and being 1.5 back. And that was just a pretty much a telltale situation of the whole season, as far as the lack of hitting, and not just that, but the lack of the timely hitting, unable to get anybody home in that first inning where you had the bases loaded and no outs. off of Duffy, and you let him off the hook, and that's a situation where he's going to take that, and he's just going to gain momentum as the game goes on. And that's really pretty much the toughest loss of the season. But again, the Indians are in a situation where they have to win every single game in order to even make this be a possibility. There's literally no more margin for error.
Absolutely. And so, and like I see these guys in the chat room, I mean, it's not like beating Kansas City. I was talking to my son last night while we're watching the game. I go, Jer, you forget, hey, Detroit lost. Kansas City can be within a game. They're not necessarily coming here just to hang out in Cleveland for a couple days. They're trying to make the playoffs. You know, it's not like that's a little bit of a different dynamic than last year where these tomato cans were just lined up and the Indians plowed through them all and none of them had anything to play for. Tampa may not, although they always play the Indians tough. But Kansas City's trying to knock us out, just like we're trying to knock them out, you know. And last night they were just that much better. Just you can put your fingers as closer, as far apart as you want. At the end of the day, they won a must-win game, and the Indians didn't. So we'll see what happens. And I agree, man. Santana. I mean, the game changer to me last night was the first inning. I mean, when you've got the bases loaded, you've got the home crowd as much as they were, you've got the opportunity. Oh, no, I'm just being real. There's like 10,000 people there. But,
I know.
But, you know, you've got what you got, and there's your chance. Let's put the pressure on them right off the bat. Let's blow this thing up early and let Carrasco get settled in here, and then first pitch swinging. Let's just pop pitches up. Let's just swing terribly. Let's, you know, and later in the game, he did the same thing. They had another opportunity. What was it? Was that in the 8th? Yeah, when they got Brantley got the leadoff walk and then got the steal on the strikeout, of course. Kipnis. Or no, was it Kipnis? Whoever it was that struck out there. May have been Gomes. Strike out. And then Santana. Once again, didn't bring him in. And I'm like, that was the other key. I said, okay, you got your 3, 4, and 5 hitters up here. This is your chance. And you got the first one on base. Okay, let's make something happen. What did we do? We popped up, we struck out, and we grounded out to end the thing. And that was the end of that one. You know, that was it. And, yeah, that was what Santana hit, the fly to center field. That was nothing happening there. And that was it, your 2 chances. But, I mean, you can't let that go in the first. As soon as that happened, I said, that's if you lose this game, I don't know what the score is going to be. That's why, right there, that inning, that's it. And it felt, was it just me? I know we're getting ready to wrap. I hear the music. Last night felt like the wild card game from a year ago. Like the Indians were tight. The Indians were just pressing. And we're, you know, I mean, it's what that lineup does. We've seen it, you know, for 2/3 of the season, they can score 3 or more and they can do well, but we see their record in those games where they score 3 or less runs. They're a completely different team when that offense gets tight and starts pressing. Last night was one of those nights, although, again, I mean, you know, I'm never going to second guess Francona because I know what a great job he's done. I mean, but it stinks. And probably not his choice when you got Jimenez and Shuck and guys like that taking at bats in the we have to win game of the season. You know, it's what's done is done, but those things are things that you go, man. And hopefully the front office sees that and goes, you know, we got to make sure that when Tito needs a bat late in the game, when Tito needs something, you know, on September 22nd, he's got something better than JB Shuck waiting for him, you know? So hopefully they notice that because they know, and hopefully they notice too, you can never predict pitching. You don't know when you're going to get pitching this good again, and it's a shame to waste it. It's an absolute shame to waste it. So we'll talk more about it. So you know what, real quick too, I was mentioning the Twitter. This made me mad. Maybe this is why I was a little bit of a chip on my shoulder when we started today's show. I got a message, and I'm not going to put the idiot's name out there because I don't give publicity to people like that, but I got a message that said, maybe more people would listen to your stupid radio show if you didn't go out there every day and actually talk like the Indians had a chance to make the playoffs. Everybody and their grandmother has known for 2 months that this team stinks and they're not making the playoffs. Boy, you've got a great show. And I'm like, are you serious? That's how you're going to cut on me? Like, I'm a bad sports talk host because I'm not an idiot and I don't, whatever. That was his general consensus of why we're not doing better. And I'm like, well, I think we're doing just fine. But I guess that's what's Indians, you know? Damn, what are we thinking over here, Jeff?
Right. The last thing we want to do is break away and try to sound different than everybody else. That would just really be a crime against men.
No. What you just said is a shame, too. Talking about the Indians should not be a way to be different. That should just be standard sports talk fare. I mean, they're only one of the 3 teams in town, the major teams. That shouldn't be an alternative. Being an alternative is talking about, you know, the Monsters and the Gladiators and the Vikings. That's at least going into a niche group. Talking about the Cleveland Indians should not make you an alternative. That should just be part of your job. But, you know, it's not like we've ever held these guys up to high standards before. Listen to the radio dial. But, yeah, that's what's wrong with our stupid little radio show is we try to fool people into believing that the Indians have any chance when anybody and their grandmother, don't forget, Grandma, too, has known for 2 months that the Indians suck and that they had no chance at all of making the playoffs. So I'm glad he knew that 2 months ago, and that's what's wrong with our stupid little show, Jeff.
Well, I wonder if he and Grandma knew this last year when I'm sure it looked even more unlikely that the Indians would make the playoffs, and yet they did. So it would be dumb not to even entertain the possibility that they could win the playoffs when mathematically it could happen. It would be irresponsible journalism not to do so.
I'll tell you what's funny is that all of the Cleveland teams, and this is just reality, for most of our lifetimes have stunk at various stretches of times. Whether it's the Browns, whether it's the long period for the Indians, whether it's the long periods that the Cavs have gone between good teams, we've all lived through terrible stretches for every team. I guarantee you there's not one person listening that can say, nope, every team's been great for all of my life. No, they haven't, and we all know that. So I always get a kick out of it because Indians fans will take shots at the Browns, and then Browns fans will take shots at the Indians, and I'm like, man, I can take shots at every single one of you, except we're all in this together. But, like, how are Indians fans going to take shots at Browns fans when for 30 years the Indians couldn't get 50 people together to watch a game, you know? The franchise was almost moved across the country like 17 times over 30 years, you know? So, but what I'm saying is this, you can do the same thing for the Browns. The Browns moved out of town, and this phony Browns team that's been here since 99, I mean, and the same thing with the Cavs, you know? Well, except for the fact that you're the luckiest to show for the last, decade or so that you've been playing. I'm just saying, I prefer to look at it the opposite way, but I always get a kick out of it when Indians fans are like, yeah, you Browns suck. And I'm like, man, there's a lot of things. Look, you had 2 winning seasons in a row. Before that, it was a decade. Then you had 5 in a row. Before that, it was 3 decades. And then Browns fans, hey, you didn't do much for the 70s. You had a couple years in the 80s. You had your few years in the 90s. Haven't done much since. Cavaliers, what have you done without LeBron James? So I think we should all remember that the name on the front of all the jerseys is Cleveland, and stop. I get a kick out of that Indians Twitter versus Browns Twitter. And I'm like, come on, man. But I always laugh at that. I'm like, trust me, we all got skeletons in the closet no matter what your team is.
That's right, because when you think about people around the country, everybody thinks of Cleveland fans as being the same one. So if you're going to go and try to drill a hole in someone else's boat, and they're going to try to drill a hole in your boat, guess what? You're in the same boat, and it's sinking.
Bruce in the chat room, I'm sorry, but the same Browns fans that yell Super Bowl at 3-2 are the Indians fans with 5 games left and 3.5 games back going, we can make the playoffs. That's just being a good fan. That's what that is. That's being a fan of your team, plain and simple. I mean, it's not like we're not floating upstream here and trying against hope to will these guys into the playoffs too. That's what I'm saying, man. It doesn't always have to be adversarial between the fan bases, but hey, whatever. Jeff Gorman, do or die tonight, man. What do you think? Do the Indians win tonight? Do they pull off a victory, keep it alive at least one more day? Are we able to keep the faith? Are we able to keep the facade going?
Well, I think so. It's going to be, tonight's going to be the hardest game because you're going up against Giordano Ventura, and you can look at everybody's stats, but what I looked at is how do they pitch against us? And Ventura, his ERA against us is 2. Tomorrow, Vargas is 4. So you got to get through Ventura to get to Vargas. Despite that, I just think that this team is just going to keep battling and somehow find a way to win tonight. I don't know if they're going to win all 5 of these games. I don't know if they're going to then make the playoffs. But I think they're going to win tonight, and I think they're going to just keep battling down to the end. I think we're going to go into the Rays series, and we're going to at least have a chance, whether it materializes or not.